Hey folks, and welcome to this video. Today we are going to look at the configuration of the currency strength histogram. So once it's installed, and I'm not going to go over the installation, if you have not yet installed the software, please go back to the installation video. It will look like this, running at the bottom of your chart. It'll show two lines and a histogram. The two lines representing the two currencies of the chart that it is attached to, and the histogram will represent the difference between the strengths of these two currencies. So if you have a look at the configuration options here, the first section is related to the software keys. The first software key is a product key, and this is the monthly key that changes on the first of every month. So if your software stops working and it's the first of the month, then you probably need to get the new product key and paste it in here. And you only have to paste this in one time on one instance of the software. It will be saved to the file system, and all other instances of the software will read it. So you don't even have to add it here after that. You do it the one time a month and then you're done. The private key, on the other hand, needs to be present on all instances of all of your software. And a really quick way to ensure that you have this key saved in all of your instances is to ensure that it is added, and then you simply create a template. So you save the template like so. You add it to the template that you wish to add it to. You go like this, you go, so if we open up a new chart, then I right click and I enable my template, and now you can see that my supply and demand software, I have my key, and the currency strength histogram, I have my key. And this just ensures that you don't have to do this all the time, because it can be a little bit of a pain having to do that. So just save the private key to a template and apply the template. Okay, then we have currency strength settings. We have the default setting, which is set to 50. If this value is too small, the volatility of the histogram will be much greater. If it is too big, it will become quite low. And so just put it on something in between. And I like the setting of around 50. This just gives a really nice visualization of the currency strength histogram. And we also have this, which is enable look back averaging, and this is the way that I've chosen to normalize the data, and it helps reduce some of the volatility of the data. If this is set to false, then the histogram will look a little bit more erratic. This is set to false. I try to flatten that out, smoothen out the data a little bit by normalizing it using moving average, and this just creates a more pleasing visual representation of the currency strength histogram. Then we have the mean. If this is set to true, these three lines at the right edge of the chart will be visible. If it is set for false, they will not be visible. We have mean periods. This tells the software how many periods of histogram data we want to use for calculating mean and variant data. I've set it to 500, so we have a really nice significant number of periods. We have a modifier, which is telling us how many times we wish to multiply the variant, which is essentially where the positive variant and the negative variants are drawn. So we have it set to 2.0. Anything over 2 is a good value. We have the mean line, which is 2. This simply tells us how thick these lines should be, and the visible periods is telling us how long these lines should be. And then below that we have the colors. We have tomato for the positive variant, forest green for negative variant, and we have gold for the golden mean, which you can't see. It's just here around the zero line, just here. Then we have the symbols. The symbols allow us to manually add symbols to the currency strength histogram that are not there by default. Currently we have these currencies just here, from the Singaporean dollar to the euro. These are built into the software, but maybe we want to add exotic currencies like the Danish krona or the Swedish krona or the South African rand. Well, then you can add these manually here. You could do this by doing this. For the Danish krona, I would put DKK. Okay. For the Norwegian krona, I would put comma NOK. If I wanted to add the Swedish krona, I would put comma SEK. I'd press enter. And now if I go to a currency pair that contains the Danish krona, then we will see this line now being drawn to our chart. And you can see here, this is the aqua colored line, the American dollar being the green colored line. And you can see the color just here. So this is a user defined currency, the color of which is aqua. You can also do this for precious metals as well. XAG, for example, if I go XAG, well then we'll notice that this disappeared. This is because we are no longer looking at the Danish krone, but we are looking at silver. So I can drag this over to the chart, and now silver will be drawn as the aqua colored line, like you can see here. We have the euro, which is the blue line, and we have the aqua colored line, which is silver. Okay, and this is based on all of the currency pairs that are traded against silver. Okay, and this, with this broker, I only have two, so I'm only using two other symbols to calculate the index of silver, which isn't a lot, because if you consider, for example, the American dollar, I'm looking at many other currency pairs to do this. And so the value of indices that are based on less than 3 or 4 crosses is going to be less profound than currency crosses where we have many. Let's move on to the next section, which is the alarm. This is a really interesting one, because what I've done now, we're enabling ourselves to scan all currency pairs on all time frames and look for extreme currency strength divergence. Okay, so the alarm interval is 1 hour, and this means that this algorithm will run once per hour. We have scan all periods. So if I set this to true, it's going to look at these settings here, max period and min period, and it's going to make sure that we are scanning all symbols equal to or less than the monthly chart and greater than or equal to the 15-minute chart. Okay? And then we go here, enable alarm for all symbols. I'll set this to true. And now I'm going to press OK. And OK is going to tell the software to run. Okay, and it's going to run once per hour. Unless you change time frames or you change symbols on the chart, then this will force the execution of the algorithm. So I'm just going to let this run. Okay, so it's just finished, and it has scanned all currency pairs on all time frames between the monthly and the 15-minute chart, and it's identified 1, 2, 3, 4 charts. So if I disable this so it doesn't run again, and I can use this to have a closer look. So I can go to the Swiss franc. I go to the Swiss franc, Kiwi dollar. Where are we? Just here. And this is on the monthly chart. So if I go to the monthly chart, it should be telling us that we're pretty negative and we're looking to move higher. Yes, so here we have monthly accumulation. So we're moving sideways, and we can expect price to move higher. And we started to pierce through that around here. So around here we were being told that we were maybe going to start to onboard some long positions. But notice this is the monthly chart, and most MT4 brokers rarely have enough data on the monthly chart. And so what I've done is I've enabled the software to tell you if there is not enough data. And here you can see not enough data for the Kiwi Swiss franc monthly data, doing my best with 260 bars. So the broker is only giving us 260 bars, but our algorithm requires 500. Okay, so you can see there's a little bit of a conflict there, but despite this fact, the software says, okay, I could do nothing or I could go on what I have, and it's just chosen to go on what it has. And you'll almost only experience this on the monthly chart. And here we have the Singapore dollar, Japanese yen, and here we had 127 bars. You can see here there are a few examples of currencies that do not have enough historical data, and in situations like that we make do with what we have. Okay, and here if you go to the British pound monthly, we're accumulating. That means we're low and looking to move high. We just go to that chart, see what that looks like. Yeah, and you can see we're really low. I wonder if we had enough data. Yeah, we only had 265 bars, so we had about half of what we would like in order to calculate these values. But it looks pretty accurate. I mean, price poked through here, we poked into that negative area, we moved away, we poked down again here, and now we're looking to move away, or we did move away. So we can expect that maybe this pair is going to wriggle higher at some stage in the not so distant future, because we're operating at these incredibly low levels. And the same applies for the Australian dollar, Japanese yen, and the Australian dollar, Swiss franc. And you can do this on any time frame. So if we go back here and we say, well, as a matter of fact, we want to find 1.5 times the variance, we want to do the same thing again. So I'm going to say, okay, scan all periods, but now I'm not interested in monthly. I only want to look at weekly and hourly and above. Okay, now I'm going to scan all of these, and I'm going to say go, and it's going to run the algorithm once again, and it's going to return the currency pairs that are entering extreme currency strength divergence territory, which is telling us that we are properly accumulating or distributing on these two opposing sides of the chart. So we'll wait just a moment and have a look at this when it comes back. Okay, here we got quite a lot back. We have everything from the weekly all the way down. That's it. We didn't have any hour data. We had weekly, daily, 4-hour data here. So you can see here on the Kiwi Swiss franc, we have accumulation on the weekly. On the Euro Swiss franc, we have distribution on the 4-hour. What does that mean? Well, that means we're probably looking to move lower on the Euro Swiss franc. Let's have a look at that. On the 4-hour chart, let's have a look there. You can see we're approaching these pretty high readings. We had the first pierce of it here, so we were like told to sell at the extreme high of here. We're told once again up here, and now we're getting close. We're being told that we're getting close to it now. Okay, so we might want to look to sell. Okay, keep in mind that on the bigger time frames, there could be a different story being told. So just be careful of what's going on in these different time frames. Okay, and so the same thing occurs here. We have Swiss franc, Singapore dollar. On the weekly, we have distribution. We have distribution on the Aussie Singaporean on the daily. Let's have a look at that just as an example. So we're on the 4-hour. Let's go to the daily chart and have a look. You can see we're pretty high. So we're distributing. So we're very high. You can see here. We're probably going to start to wriggle lower from here within the next day or two. Notice that we are approaching this area of supply, which has been tested once before, and so we are actually at a sell zone for the Australian dollar, Singaporean dollar on the daily chart at an extreme positive currency strength divergence. So certainly something to look out for there. But this is how that works essentially. And then we have the same thing but for the crossovers, and so this is going to tell us when we have this going on, where we have the histogram moving from negative to positive territory or positive to negative territory. So that's another check there. And then here we have the next section, which is the appearance, and the appearance is just telling us about the thickness of the lines and the colors. One final thing I want to touch upon before we move on, that is historical data. Okay, so I don't want you guys to download the software, install it, and start using it without preparation. And when I say preparation, I mean you have to have sufficient data or the software will not work properly. Okay, and so what you have to do to ensure that you have sufficient data is you zoom out all the way and you go through all of the time frames on all of the symbols. And for all of the time frames, it'll take you about 10 minutes. And this may sound like a long time, but it's not. And the beauty of it is that it will ensure that you have very, very good data. And you can see just down here, this is telling you where we have data uploaded and downloaded. Notice that this value currently at 52.13, it will change, it'll go higher as I change time frames. And this is because we are forcing it to download historical data. Okay, so you have to do this. This is very important. You have to do this to all of the time frames on all of the symbols that you have in your market watch. And you just go up and down. And this just forces it to iterate through these different time frames multiple times to ensure that we force the MT4 terminal to download any missing historical data. Well, I am going to leave it at that for the configuration. So what about the usage? I mean, how are we using this piece of software? What I like to do is I like to set the software to scan, and I like the software to tell me when we have extreme currency strength divergence taking place. And I'll simply leave it up to the software. And so I'll specify my settings here. Let's say you want to scan everything. You want 1 times variance, and you want to do this on the 1 hour chart. So you scan everything all time frames, all symbols, but you want to do it on the 1 hour chart. Then you set the maximum and the minimum to 1 hour, and you press OK. It'll tear through everything here in the market watch on the 1 hour chart, and it'll return anything that's popping up. And you can see here the pound Singaporean dollar is the only one that's looking interesting. So here we have 1 hour pound Singapore dollar distribution. So let's go to that chart just here. So we should be maybe a little bit high, approaching some resistance or approaching some area of support. You can see we go to the 1 hour chart. This is where we are. You can see that we are approaching this really nice area of supply. And the sell zone is right here. So when price comes up here, we're getting to this very high level, this positive variance at a sell zone at supply. Okay, so this could be a very interesting place to begin to sell this currency pair. Okay, so this is how I'm using it. And so I'll normally set it to scan a few different time frames. I have my time frames set up. Well, normally I'm looking at anything from, I don't look at the weekly to the 4 hour, like so, and I'm leaving this on 2, and I'll let it scan everything. And if something pops up, I get something, then I have work to do. If nothing pops up, then there's nothing to do. So I just let this run. It just take a couple of seconds. Nothing popped up, so that's it. There's absolutely nothing to do. Okay, so there's nothing to do on those time frames. So the weekly, the daily, 4 hour, 2 times the variant, there's nothing to do. Okay, so what do? You do nothing. You go for a walk, or you hang out with your kids, or you do something else, but there's nothing to do. And so this is just a really nice way to force yourself to sit on your hands. If the software is telling you nothing, then there's nothing to do. Of course, you could go in and you could force it to tell you something, but that would be silly. That would be the equivalent of chasing trades. And so I don't encourage you to do that. Okay, so that's very simply how I am using the software. You can see this is a really interesting setup that's occurring. In a situation like this, you might want to look on the greater time and the bigger time frames to see where we are in relation maybe to the 4 hour, the weekly. And if we do that, you can see that we're actually negative and we're looking to move higher. What does that mean? That means we'll probably get a small reaction there and a bounce, and then probably a continuation higher. Let's have a look on the daily chart. And you got the same thing occurring here. Price is actually beginning to turn around. So you might want to be a little bit careful selling at this hourly supply, the hourly sell zone, because we have different things happening on the higher time frame. So just be careful of that. Doesn't mean you can't trade it. It just means that if you do trade on the hourly chart, you just want to manage the trade a little bit more aggressively. Good. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions, additional questions about how to use the software, please let me know. Type them in the video, under the video, or add them to the Currency Strength channel and our Discord server. And thanks for watching.